Welcome everybody to the Chess Lab, welcome to episode 13 of Road to 2500 Lichess Rapid. Let's go! Today, because of very tight schedule, I may not be able to do the analysis post-game, and also I'm eating, so hopefully you don't mind that too harsh. Okay, so the game is starting. We are playing with white pieces. Screen looks alright. One knight f3, c5, g3, knight c6, bishop g2, d5 as usual, d4 because here black wants to play e5, which is possible. We will go in a reverse King's Indian, but we prefer to play d4. They take, we take, and now after e5 we will go in some sort of a reverse Grunfeld, but my opponent decides to play g6, and their idea is to attack my knight like that. Okay. I've never seen this move. An option is to castle, bishop g7, take, and then play for c4. If they defend, well, then we enter those positions that, you know, they play g6 and then they play e6. It's not super clear. What option do I have? Knight d2 to support the knight later fails because they win a piece. I could play c3, but I could also play c3 later. So the only alternatives is castle or b3. After b3, bishop g7, bishop b2. That's the point, threatening knight takes c6. That's an interesting option, but then there is check. Well, then I have bishop c3, I guess. Things get complicated then, though. Okay, let me castle. Let me just stay flexible for the time being and see what happens. Bishop g7. I think I'm going for this idea of opening up their center, and again, we kind of saw similar positions in the previous game I played. If they ever push this pawn, because I can also play knight c3, right, to target it. If they ever push it, I'm not that annoyed because this opens up. So, of course, my knight is under attack, right? So let's capture. And now let's strike with c4. If they take, that's quite unpleasant. Even though there are some lines where in the Grunfeld white sacrifices the rook to weaken the dark squares, and the best move in fact is not to take. Okay, knight f6. Now I think I can play knight c3. And on castle I can just take, and I can force them to have an isolated pawn. I can also take immediately. Do they plan to take with a knight in that case? Also, I don't know what I'm talking about. After here, and take, this is not an isolated pawn. But they will lose a pawn. So that's definitely good. Knight c3, d4, bishop takes, bishop d7, bishop takes, pawn takes. Well, but in that case I'm not that unhappy, perhaps. but knight c3, d4. I also have knight b5. They can't really take the hang a rook, and I'm attacking a pawn and another pawn. So let's go with knight c3 and let's see what they're gonna do. Okay, now they play e6, so we transpose to the idea that they played g6, they play e6 and all these things. And in the previous game, not like yesterday game, but a previous game, we saw this idea of playing e4, but the queen was here on b6, so this is not exactly the same structure. I wonder what happens if I take, they take with the c pawn, and then I go for this idea of playing e4, remember? And after they play d4, I have e5. If they take, well, I take, they take with the bishop, I take the rook, they take again, it's a very complex position here, I can check them, they block, we trade everything, take, and in the end I should be up an exchange. I think I'm going for it. I think I'm absolutely going for it. Also, if d4, there are ideas like queen to a4, and if they block, then I take, and if they don't, then I play rook d1. Okay, they played like this, but now I'm gonna take. They're probably gonna take with the knight. I'm gonna take, they're gonna take, and they're gonna have the famous isolated pawn, even though, what about queen b4, queen a4 now? Again, these are all ideas that we already saw in another line, and look at how handy they're becoming. I guess they have to play queen d7, right? I would assume. Then I take. They take with the knight, I take. But then they may take. They are giving up an important bishop though. I can also play bishop g5 perhaps here, but then they push and then it's annoying. Even though again, there are ideas like check, bringing the knight out. It's not so obvious. For example, after check queen d7, I have this idea knight b5, threatening check. Maybe they can just castle at that point. So once again, takes with the knight. Maybe check here. Why not? If they play queen d7, I take, their king is stuck in the center. Feels alright, let's try to go for this. Again, I can just take. If they take with the pawn, I have this nasty check. And I feel their position is really, really bad. But after this, they're gonna take with the bishop. And maybe then we have a check. Then I take. They take, I take. They take. Check. They move. And you know, I have some pressure here, so I don't know how much I like it, but this check, this very nasty check here, looks really, really, really interesting. Really interesting. What if they just move the king? Well, then I have knight takes, they have to take with the bishop, otherwise they're in trouble. And then I have rook d1, for example, and they are in trouble. So let me deliver this check. Maybe I'm not calculating too precisely, but because again, I can see that, okay, they block like this, but now they are gonna have their queen kind of stuck, their king stuck in the middle of the board, no? Of course, I can try to go here, but then they just castle and it doesn't look good. So I think I'm just gonna take it. And now their king is stuck in the middle of the board. And I wanna go rook d1 to threaten to win this pawn. How they're gonna defend? Are they gonna go here? But that looks quite dangerous, doesn't it? Not sure how they plan to defend. Maybe after rook d1 they want to take, but after I take back, threatening to push. That's definitely an interesting consideration. I can play knight takes, obviously. Bishop takes and now rook d1. But I think that if we are forcing them to give up this important bishop and give us the bishop pair in an open position, where we have all of a sudden open lines for our pieces, I think we shouldn't complain much about it. And they do. Now they move. But now we can check them like that. Where are they gonna go? Here looks quite suspicious after we attack this knight. Also, wait a second. After I play c4, this bishop is kinda loose. They plan to jump in to attack our rook. But then we can check. They have to move the king. We take here, they take here. We take here. I have to calculate this because this may be winning. So let's calculate. There is c4, right? What do they plan to do on c4? I'm threatening to win their knight. If they move it randomly, we just win their bishop. So after c4, they have to go to c3. Right? However, then we have bishop to a3 check. After bishop to a3 check, what are they gonna do? If they go to f6, let's say, then we have this move, and we're gonna take their knight with check, and then take back the bishop. So c4, knight c3, bishop a3. They can't really go to the dark squares, and they can't even go there, so they really have to go here. They really have to go here. That's the only move. Then we take this bishop and we are up a full piece. And then they take our rook, and we have some interesting options here. First of all, we can take. And if I count material, I think that I'm up material, yes. What am I missing? I don't think I'm missing anything here. If this I just take. So let's try to go for it. I think that's good. I think this is winning. They go here indeed. But again, I think we simply have this check, no? Because this is now defended, that's the point. And again, going here feels wrong, because once they take, we take here first with check, and then we win their bishop. And I think that was critical. They can't go here, they can't go here, they can't go here. So that's the only move, okay. But now these guys are not defended anymore. And I think that now I have a couple of interesting moves, but I think this is just the cleanest. Threatening checkmate too. They move here, but now this is checkmate, isn't it? Yeah. GG guys, I'm very happy that this game was that short. I really feel good. I still have here my food to eat. My opponent asked for a rematch, but these things can last a lot, so I'm not gonna take it. I'm just gonna go to the analysis board. And this game is amazing, and this shows you the power of learning and having experience in certain openings. This is huge. Hopefully you guys recall the other game we played. I'm gonna search it now. I'm gonna show you. Hopefully this is gonna be extremely educational. Very precise game, as you can see. Now, c4 was possible, which is logical. It attacks the pawn, and if the pawn takes, well, you know, knight takes and it's over. After take, once they take back, we check them and win the rook, and it's just over. So, yeah. They should have played d6. Now we have bishop f4, bishop g7, knight to b5. By playing e6, they let us win a tempo, right? And now we are threatening infiltrations. Bishop takes b2, crazy variations as usual, thanks to the engine. Ignoring everything and going for it. E takes. Of course, a human should have to also consider this, which don't ask me what happens on that. Yeah, don't ask me what happened on that. And now takes, knight up, check, crazy variation, but I played castle, and from here I play perfect chess basically. Bishop g7, takes, c4, knight f6, knight c3, e6, taking it's okay, and now e4, look at that. This idea we learned from a previous game, awesome. This is a middle game idea that we learned. This is not opening, this is nothing. Bishop b7, and now e takes d5, knight takes d5, queen a4 check. This is also an idea we learned from the other game, so hopefully this is very educational for you guys. Queen d7, we just took, and here again, okay, the engine doesn't super like this, so perhaps maybe taking and going for the isolated pawn was perhaps better. Even though this engine here says that rook d1 is second best move, so okay, this is not a super depth engine, so rook d1 is fine. Bishop takes, and again, this is more of a general concept, this is not specifically to this opening, but you know, now we have an open position, semi-open technically, because, you know, there is a pawn here, but I will consider this a quite open position. And we have the two bishops, and usually tactics works in our favor. Here we are threatening c4, and so, because this is pinned, and my opponent decided to sidestep with king to e7, which is a blunder. Better was to play rook h to c8, which again stops c4, because c4 is a threat both on this line and on this line. So saving this line here doesn't changes nothing, okay? So it was important to prevent c4, like the move c4, not the concept. My opponent prevented the concept of c4 because now this is not pinned, but c4 is still strong because this is pinned. And so c4 was played, I calculated correctly. Knight c3, bishop a3 check, and here king e8 was played by my opponent. King f6 is technically best, but again, bishop b2, bishop takes g2, bishop takes e3 check, very important intermediate move, or intermezzo. And now e5, but now I just take and I'm up a piece, as you can see, and it's very clear. Now, of course, my idea is to check and then win this pawn. Rook a to d8, but now we can take, putting the rook behind the passed pawn, then we're going to move the bishop in a safe square, and then we're just going to push, right? And eventually we're going to win the game. But my opponent played king to e8, and after bishop takes b7, rook b8 is a mistake because it allows checkmate, but after rook takes d1, I guess, yeah, rook takes d1 work, because now we are threatening the rook, and we are threatening checkmate, because this bishop controls everything, right? And the problem is, if you play rook c8, I just take. If you play rook to b8, I just check. And if you play rook d8 again, check. And this rook has to interpose, and this is probably gonna be checkmate very soon. I'm not sure I would have played this, to be honest, if he took. Perhaps I would have just played the naive bishop takes, and this is +5, so it's not the end of the world. Again, up a piece. I'm happy that I also managed to count material correctly, and that is it. But okay, my opponent played rook b8, and this simply allows checkmate in 1. So as you can see from the very beginning, they played this some sort of c5 d5 setup with knight c6. You kind of can remember these three pieces against our fianchetto setup, right? And again, when I say setup, you don't have to think system, but we must think specifically, right, about conformation of pieces. Here, for example, against other setups, not systems, setups, the best move would be to just castle. Like, for example, if d5, bishop g2, and let's say knight to f6, here simply castling is best, if I'm recalling correctly. But after knight c6 and d5, right, you have to ask yourself what my opponent wants to do. They want to play e5 to get a massive center. They would have 3 pawns in the center. This is possible, this is playable. That will be the King's Indian defense in reverse, so you will be up a tempo, and it's around equal with best play by both sides. But why allow that? You want to play d4. Also, psychologically, your opponent wants to get the center. You're right, no. You don't get the center. And here my opponent captured. I captured, and here they played g6, which again, I may improve my knowledge, and I now can introduce c4 in my repertoire against specifically g6. So now I'm talking about specific moves. But in general, as a concept, I castled, which is given as an inaccuracy in this specific position, but it can be fine in other lines, and it's still equal, so it's not a big deal. After bishop g7, it's still plus 0.3, so it's still the opening advantage. Here taking and going for c4 is a great idea. And okay, here e6 was expected, but after knight f6, knight c3, it doesn't really change as much. Now e6 was played, and here I found myself in a similar situation in a previous game, and I remember that I didn't go in a line like this because I'm like, I can't allow my opponent to have this very solid center. But it turns out that the engine idea was to capture, and actually best was in these other lines to take with the e-pawn. Because if you took with the c-pawn, which perhaps here is the best move in this specific position, there is this move e4. And since black is still yet to castle, it's quite challenging to meet this move from the black perspective. And the best is actually to just castle, and this simply allows white to make black weakens their center. After knight takes, e takes, you can win a pawn. Now, because this bishop is so strong, it turns out that black has compensation, right? But still, you know, you're winning a pawn, and you're causing maximum pressure to your opponent. In the end of the day, the chess is an equal game, right? It's 0-0. But if you can win a pawn and ask your opponent questions, practically speaking, that's the most challenging. But by the way, that line, that's actually dry if you think about it, because black will eventually win back a pawn on your queen side. That's why here castle is a little bit of an inaccuracy. The engine sees in every direction in many moves, so c4 is really the most testing. But humanly speaking, castle is also testing. Bishop g7 takes, again these ideas of pushing for e4, and as you can see my opponent immediately kind of misses the right direction. Here I decided to take, not sure if the engine thinks that this is the best. Now by the way, after e4 I'm curious to see what happened on d4, and here there are a couple of moves that look very interesting. Let's see what the engine thinks. And yeah, both of them are playable, but e5 is clearly superior. And here after pawn takes, there is queen takes, okay, to simplify the calculation. And here both bishop takes a8 and e takes f6 are fine. Bishop takes, for example. If you take here, I'm just taking here, consolidating the pawn. Bishop here doesn't work because I can always check and then move this guy back, for example. Let me see. Oh no, here even e takes f6, look at that. And if bishop takes f1, f takes g7, and black is left without pieces. So bishop takes f6, and now even b takes c3. Wow. Wow. Bishop takes f1, king takes f1, and we are up a piece. So that's what happens. But bishop b7, and now my computer lags when I open the engine, but... And here queen a4 check would have been the most testing, but again this idea of queen a4 check. Yeah, there's always queen a4 check, whether you take first or later, queen a4 check is always present, critical. Now let's go on my profile here. If it loads. Okay, and now I'm gonna go and see if I can find that game. Yeah, yesterday I played against the Candidate Master. It was a pretty brutal game. You can find it on the channel. Let me see which game it was. It was one of the very first. It was perhaps the very first. Knight f3, d5, g3. I don't think it was this one here. Or maybe it was. I think it was this perhaps. Let's see. Not super sure. Hopefully I'm not lagging too badly. Yes, I think it was this one here. Yes, it was this game here. So as you can see, my opponent played queen b6. And here I went with knight takes c6, c4, e6, and here I really didn't know what to do. And so I settle on queen to c2. Right? However, let me make the screen dark for a second and let me go on my studies. Just give me just a second, guys. This is very educational for you, hopefully. Here it is. Just give me a second, guys. I'm about to reopen the video. Here it is for you. So as you can see, this is a Liche study that I've done. And the title is Reverse Grunfeld with Queen to b6. And this is the way that I want to improve my repertoire, right? So knight f3, d5, g3, c5, bishop g2, knight c6, d4, and here c takes d4. If knight f6 castles, c takes, knight takes, that will be the line that you're about to see. Here we go, third position, castle, and here queen b6 was played. Again, e5 will be going into a reverse Grunfeld. And if you don't understand exactly what reverse Grunfeld means, basically the Grunfeld is an opening where white gets the center and blacks attack it from the distance. And if e5 is played, is the same thing. Black will get the center and you attack it from the distance. That's why it's called reverse Grunfeld. But my opponent plays queen b6. And let's read the comments together. Again, this is going to be perhaps a little bit long, but I still have some time. My meal here is getting cold, but doesn't matter. This move is played only 1% of the times in the Lichess database and 10% of the times in the master database. It turns out this move is practically quite bad, so I think it's worth it, if only for curiosity, to investigate it. And as you can see, investigating certain lines, even if it's not necessarily that they're gonna happen again, they can give you ideas that then are useful in different games, which is exactly what happened to me today, which is amazing. Let me move this a second. Okay. And again, e5 would be the main move, covered well in Nate Solon course. Okay, but we're looking at this. And here, knight takes c6, and look at the comment. This move looks harmless, but is poisonous. Because again, it looks harmless because it seems like you're just trading pieces. Now I'm gonna link this study in the description, in the pinned comment, because here I go into depth, for example, what happens if queen takes. This is not very good, but I explained there why. B takes c6, of course, is the very logical move, taking towards the center. And here c4. This is what I played in that game that I showed you. Again, this is the idea, playing in Gruffudd Spirit. Again, if they take, then there are problems on this pawn. And after taking queen a4, you can see the analysis in the link that I will leave in the comments. But okay, e6, right? And read the comment. This seems logical, and in fact it is. However, forces black to enter in very muddy waters. But again, it looks logical, right? It looks like black is very, very strong. He doesn't even have played this, so it really looks good for them. But now c takes d5. Yet again, in my opinion, this is counterintuitive. Again, I didn't play this in the game. However, it's based on a very concrete reason. And I showed that queen c2 was the move I chose in the rapid game that I showed you, right? So now this is not what I played. This is my improved analysis on what the engine recommends against this apparently extremely solid setup, which in reality is not that solid at all. Again, it forces black to enter muddy waters. C takes d5. Yet again, in my opinion, this is counterintuitive. And the reason I say this, now we know that it's not, right? But it seems like it helps black develop. But no. Okay, c takes d5, counterintuitive, but now c takes d5. Looks logical, taking towards the center. In engine world, it's better to take with the other pawn too. With the other pawn though. Okay, so e takes d5, right? That would be the better engine move. And again, there is a whole explanation why that is. Feel free to investigate it in the link. Now c takes d5. And again, it looks logical, right? You're taking towards the center. It seems like everything is fine. But now knight c3. This is White's grandiose idea, which I missed in the rapid game I mentioned. White goes for the e4 central break. Look at this. In a completely unrelated position, as you can see. And this is why studying openings, in this sense here, it's so important. It's not just about memorizing 10 moves. It's also trying to understand the ideas and the typical patterns. Look at this. So awesome. And again, this is the way I like to study. And also it's appropriate, I think, perhaps for my level, a little bit more than other ways to do it. But I got a question, how do I improve from 800 to 1500? And I replied that I have a very personal take on this, which is it really doesn't matter what you do. What matters is that you spend some times, using your brain on the chessboard, and I stand by it. And that's the way that you see me do this, is just the way I like to do it for myself. And I'm able to do this every day for some time, and I feel like I'm improving thanks to this. But maybe for you something else works. Okay, so here, bishop e7, this is the most played, but perhaps not too accurate. It simply allows us to go e4. Bishop b7 would be more on point, and here there is a crazy line, right? Again with the queen a4 check, and then there are crazy lines here. Again, this line here is more concrete, because in the line that I played in the game, this bishop here is on g7, the queen is not on b6. The line that happened today in the game that you saw that I just played today is a little bit less forcing perhaps. But okay, let's say bishop e7, and now look at this, e4, right? d4 doesn't work because of e5. See? This idea of double attack, this is so huge. D takes, E takes, look at that. C takes, B takes, and in the end there is also this intermediate check, look at this, because this comes with check, and then you're gonna pick up the rook, completely winning. So beautiful stuff. So this concept of pushing the pawn for black, but it doesn't work because you push back, this is a move that, of course, came immediately as a candidate move in the game I played today, because I already saw it here, right? It's all about these patterns, like this concept. You move the pawn, I move mine, because I double attack, and I leave my knight hanging. These are patterns, and again, this is awesome. But okay, let's investigate d takes e4, which would be the best in this specific structure here. And after knight takes, I mean, there are crazy threats here. Knight takes, of course, bishop b7. You know, check, check. Again, look at this nasty move. The king moves, and now again, you're attacking the queen. The queen has to go back. Of course, taking here always loses, because this falls in the end. Queen c7, and the bishop falls. But again, you have this analysis in the comments. Knight takes, bishop takes, attacking the rook, bishop here, and again this check. All these moves, as you can see, are patterns that I got from this analysis. And this position is completely different. There is no g6 in my game, the queen is still on d8, so the position is different, but the ideas, as you can see, are the same. King f8, and now bishop e3, and again, black here is gonna lose this bishop eventually, either because they take and they get skewered, or because eventually they won't be able to handle this pressure. So yeah, that's hopefully very, very useful for you to see. And yeah, 37 minutes of recording, not even 40 minutes, a nice win using some patterns that I learned from a previous analysis because of a game, in the same opening but different lines. And this hopefully gives you ideas on how you can study. But again, whatever you do, in my opinion, it's fine. The important thing is that you do something. But maybe some of you see this and they're like, oh, that looks a right way to do it. And if that works for you, fantastic. Otherwise, you'll find something else. That's also fine. So having said that, I'm very happy of this game. I'm very happy of this way of analyzing that I found for myself. What more to say? Nothing. Enjoy your day. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, enjoy your chess.